Welcome to Managing a Virtual or Remote Team. My name is Linda Garrett-Johnson, and I'm the owner and principal consultant for the Word Applied Incorporated. This brief video is designed for you who are managing a virtual or remote team to understand how to do that effectively. It's for those of you who are new at virtual teams and managing them, as well as you who have been doing this for some time. I am a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, process improvement, and organizational development consultant with 25 years of experience. I'm a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, a fur mommy to Foxy, and a fun fact about me is I am the owner of Gima Gear, a clothing line for women who are definitely not grandma as usual. So when you're thinking about managing a virtual or remote team, there are 4 areas that I think are important that I'm going to be going over in this slide, and I'll be going into more detail about each area in the upcoming slides. The first area is having a virtual touch base, which is how is the team or the individual doing? The second is status updates, having regular status updates so you understand how the project or the work is going. The third thing is communication. That is, communicate regularly information of importance. And then the final thing is shared drives, and that is a place for the team to share documents and information. So when you're managing a remote or virtual team, one of the things that you want to do is have virtual touch bases. And you want to do that with the individuals as well as the team as a whole. So individual touch bases or remote meetings are ones where you're either doing maybe professional development with that individual, or you're asking them to provide you with an update on the project work. They can also talk to you about anything that they need from you in particular. It's those types of meetings. We usually call them one-on-ones. The other thing is having a regular touch base meeting with your team as a whole. And if you have a large team, you can consider breaking that up into maybe 2 meetings with 2 groups of people. But hopefully you'll be able to do it with the entire group together. And that's where the group is talking to one another. They're giving updates on their particular projects. Maybe somebody is highlighting a particular best practice that they learned. There could be someone sharing a problem that they're having on a project, and they're asking the team to maybe do some brainstorming together with them. There's so many different things that you can use that meeting for. And you can also share information with them, just general information that you want to make sure that the entire team hears at the same time. I would suggest that those meetings, whether they're individual touch base meetings or team meetings as a whole, that you schedule them for no more than 30 minutes. And I can hear you already thinking 30 minutes, that's really not a lot of time. Over the past 10 years, I have learned to have some very effective 30-minute meetings, either as an individual contributor or with teams as a whole. So 30 minutes is plenty of time if you have a short, focused agenda. Do not try to cram everything into an agenda for a 30-minute meeting. Now, there are times when 30 minutes is really just not enough time, and you realize that there's a lot that you want to cover, and you schedule an hour. But if you schedule an hour, try not to use the entire hour unless you absolutely need it, and really try to discipline yourself to really be focused and have no more than a 30-minute meeting. The other thing is during the meeting, whether it's a team meeting or an individual meeting, you can ask, or you can do this yourself, you can ask for someone to type up a recap of the meeting and what was discussed and send that out via email, especially if there are action items that you wanted to make sure are going to be getting done or something that you assigned. And the reason for this is to make sure that there's no misunderstanding about the action items, that there's common understanding about what was talked about. It doesn't have to be a dissertation. It could be bullet points, just highlighting some of the key things that were discussed on the call. And it just serves as a way to make sure that everyone's on the same page. The other thing that I would suggest is for your team meetings to try to schedule a fun touch base virtually for your team once in a while. And this is where you want to really get your team involved. You can have people take turns to kind of figure out what the fun thing would be done on the team touch base, and you can really make it fun. It can be a way for people to get to know one another, and it really helps the team to bond to one another. The other thing that you want to do as a manager of a remote or virtual team is to get regular written updates about what's going on. And so what you want to do is ask for a written update on project work or specific assignments. And what you also want to do is communicate the specific information that you need to make sure that you're getting from that status report. Because if you're not clear about what it is that you would like to get in the status report, you may get a lot of things that really are not important. The status report does not have to be, again, a dissertation or something really long. It can be some key areas that you want to make sure people are giving you an update on, either as an individual contributor or if someone is doing it, maybe they're functioning as a project manager and you want to get an update on the entire project, you have some way of communicating to them what it is you'd like to know about the project. Written is better than verbal. There are times where you can get a really quick update about the status of a project. That's fine occasionally, but written is better than verbal because then you have a way of understanding what was accomplished, what were the barriers, what are the most important things that need to get done, what are the action items, who made a key decision, those types of things. And I'd suggest that you do this, you make sure that you get this type of an update at least weekly. If you have a project with a very, very tight deadline or something that's very, very important and that needs to get done within a very short period of time, then you may want to get some really, really quick updates on a more frequent basis, but weekly should be enough. The other thing is that you can, on an optional basis, you could create a template to standardize the status update, and you can use either Excel or Word, something like that in terms of a template, and just really show people the key areas that you want to make sure that they're providing information to you on. So when managing a virtual or remote team, communication is very, very key. And what I mean by that is clearly communicating individual and or team virtual work expectations. Again, because you're not in the office, you're not sitting physically with one another. It's not like you can walk over and just say, hey, how you doing? And so you maybe want to make sure that you have some clear virtual work expectations with individuals as well as the team so that everyone is on the same page about how to work together as a virtual team. The other thing is sharing information with the team regularly, and you can do this via a virtual meeting. It can be a couple of bullet points in your virtual meetings that you have with the team, or you can also make sure that if there are emails of importance that you're forwarding it. And if you do forward emails, consider who needs to see it. There may be an email that only one person on the team needs to get, and there are some emails that maybe come from your senior leadership that you want to make sure that everyone gets because they're not on the same email string as a manager or senior leader that you might be. So those are the types of emails that you want to pick and choose when to forward. The other thing that you can do too is, depending upon the virtual work tool that you're using, learn how to use the chat feature that comes with that virtual tool that you're using. And those chat features, it's different depending upon if you're using Office Communicator, if you could be in a WebEx and you're chatting with someone in the WebEx. Again, if you're doing that, make sure you know who you're sending that chat to so that you're not chatting to everyone. Unless you want to chat to everyone. It's very important when you're on a WebEx to really, really know who you're sending that message to. But there's lots of different features depending upon the virtual tool that you're using, lots of different chat features that you can use. So learn that chat tool, and that's a way to send a quick message to someone. Hey, what's the status of this? I'm wondering, how are we doing on that? Do you need any help here? It's those types of things that can come up. Or, hey, I'm going to step away for a minute. I'll be out for the rest of the afternoon. It's those, just, if you need to let someone know that really quickly. So learn the chat feature, because communication, especially when you're working remotely as a team, that's really important. It's really important for people to feel like, even though they're not physically together, that they still are together as a team, and that even though they're not physically in your presence, that they feel like you are accessible to them. The final thing that I want to talk about is shared drives and shared files. Now, this is a place where if you do have a technology department or area, you want to work with them. And hopefully you do. If you don't, then think about how do you want to share. There might be ways that you can still share files. There's lots of ways to do that, like using Microsoft Office. There's workspaces in Microsoft Office that you can use. But if you're in a larger or mid-sized company and you do have an IT department, I would suggest you work with them to set up any network drives, and then making sure that the appropriate people have access to those network drives. Network drives are locations on a specific server that everyone that is granted access to can access that drive, where they can put their files, their documents, and then everyone on the team has the ability to see that and share that information. And what's great about that is that if one person is sick, or one person goes on vacation, or somebody's not going to be able to make it to a meeting and they need someone else to back them up, again, they have access to that information of the other teammate or individual. And you as a manager have access to that as well. You want to also make sure, as much as possible, that people are not working on their individual drives on their computer. And what I mean by that is that there's typically a lot of times it's designated as the C drive on your hard drive. It's the drive on your individual computer that only you can access that information. And when people are working on their individual drives versus on a shared drive, there's a lot of problems with that. Oftentimes, if you're in a large or mid-sized organization, most often your technology department is backing up files that are in a shared location on a regular basis, so that if there's a computer crash or something happens with a computer, that you're still able to get at the work that's done. But if people are working on their individual computer drive as opposed to a shared drive that's being backed up by your IT department, if there's a computer crash, I've seen it a lot of times where people are crying, literally, because their work is gone and no one has backed it up and they can't get at it. And the other thing too is that you as a manager, that's really not a good best practice for everyone to be working on their individual drives. They really should be working on a shared drive location. And as I think about this, I think I might just create another presentation just to go into the do's and don'ts of individual and shared drives. And again, with a shared drive and files, it keeps documents that the team needs to share utilization of in a location that everyone can get access to. And so this is a sample agenda and a sample status report, and it really is just that. It's meant to be an example or a sample for you. Especially with the agenda on how you can keep it brief, 30 minutes or under. So for the sample agenda, you would have 1 or 2 minutes for a welcome and in the attendance taking. The second thing would be 5 minutes for 1 or 2 project updates, and again, making sure that people are keeping it brief. The other thing is spending a little bit more time on maybe a best practice, 10 minutes. or there might be a time for someone to talk about a project where they're having some difficulty and they'd like to get some feedback from the team. So that would be like best practice, or a team member sharing a challenge that they're having on a project. And then here's where you as the manager or somebody else might give some department updates, maybe taking no more than 5 minutes. And then there's a closing, which usually is about questions and things like that that came up along the way with things that people have heard as they sat through the meeting. So all in all, it would take no more than 30 minutes tops. The second thing that I have here is an example of what could be contained in a status report. And again, if you have people who are working on more than one project, they could use one document that would give an update on each of their individual projects. So at a high level, they give you the project name. They'd also have a section for key accomplishments. The key accomplishments would be done in bullet point form. So they're just giving you really the highlights of the key accomplishments. They would also have a section for barriers and then how they either mitigated those barriers or if they need some help or maybe they need you to intervene. So they're escalating something up to you. Also, there could be a section on key decisions or action items that were taken and who took those action items or who made those key decisions and when they made them. And then the last thing would be next steps. And so again, this is just meant to be an example or sample of an agenda and status report. So I hope that you found this helpful. Again, I just wanted to give you a couple of tips and tricks, some tools of the trade, little things that I have learned for the past 25 years that I've been working, and a lot of that time I've been working remotely. If you want to get a hold of me and learn more, you can visit my website, which is www.applytheword.com, and you can also email me at connect@applytheword.com. And don't forget to like, share my video, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take care.